Thanks for listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast brought to you by DraftKings. All right, NBA's over, but that means the NHL is still going on. You put in $5, you get $150 in free, $100 in free plays if you're a new customer. It doesn't matter who wins. Okay. This was a massive, massive recruiting weekend. Everybody hop in here with all your thoughts and comments. All right. Arizona basketball, the entire coaching staff was, well, except for one, was up in Glendale, covering a bunch of different players, a bunch of different prospects. It's going to be a little bit of a different show we got going on today because thanks to a bunch of people that were there with me, Sean, Emma, Shane, Totri, they were able to make this look good for me. So here's the deal. We're going to run down priority recruit after priority recruit, talk about everything that's going on. Hello, Alfred. How you doing, my man? And then we'll go from there. But the top priority player in any class by any measure is Carter Bryant. Now, you might say, we've been talking a little bit about Carter Bryant. What exactly can he do? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to show you a few highlights here of what Carter Bryant can do. Here we go. So you can tell right here, he's just a smooth athlete. He takes the ball down the court. He can get by his guy. He can also see the passing lanes. Look at this right there. Pull up. This is NBA type stuff right here. Obviously, you're dealing with a guy who is a younger dude, but at the same time, I mean, look at that pass right there. This is inherently one of the better players in the entire country and a guy that just, quite frankly, is a McDonald's All-American player for a variety of reasons. The one thing that I think is really impressive about him is the feel, the flow that he has for the game. And we're going to use this term over and over and over again, continuity. Andre Veras just popped in. Iron Mike, I missed the beard. I missed the beard as well, but I'll bring it back in the winter. Don't worry, man. Carter Bryant, though. He is he was the first guy to be offered in the 2024 class, and you can tell by some of the highlights why exactly he is that. And when he talked about, after one of his games, what about Arizona he really liked, and he said it really meant a lot to me that I was prioritized by them from day one and that I was their first offer. They don't give out a lot of offers. So Carter Bryant is the first name that you need to know. Everything off the 2024 class will revolve around him. There's obviously going to be other players, but we'll certainly keep you up to date on who you need to know there. But that's the one. If you want to tell your friends, who does Arizona really want? Carter Bryant's that guy. There's some other ones we're going to get to. Now, the next one we're going to get to, we don't have highlights, we don't have any clips of, but Cody Williams. Now, we've talked about Cody Williams a great deal. Going into this tournament, he was kind of on the fence. A lot of people were on the fence about, is he Arizona good? Is he not Arizona good? Well, in front of the entire Arizona coaching staff, he dropped a 20-point, 8-rebound, 8-assist game. And what was even more impressive than anything is that he did it naturally. He did it within the flow of the game. What's going to be fascinating for him is how he is able to mature physically, because he's a thin dude. But you look at his brother, there's a track record there as to how he's going to, he might be a late bloomer, but he's the kind of late bloomer that you're going to be okay with, because by the time he's a sophomore or a junior, you're going to be seeing a player that is an all-conference caliber guy, an all-American type. He's got that type of potential. He's just got to work hard. And there's no indications that he won't work hard, mainly because of where he comes from, his lineage. He's got to come from a great family. His brother is one of the biggest late bloomers in the entire country at Santa Clara. He's going to be a first-round pick. And then you watch, the only thing that you really worry about with Cody Williams is he's got to be a little bit more assertive out there. Sheer and I were talking about it. The only thing that you really take away from him that you wish he was a little bit more assertive, but he's also a young guy too. So don't necessarily worry about that. But I would imagine that Arizona will have him an offer here very shortly. Matter of fact, it wouldn't surprise me if he has that within the week. And I think that they would love to be able to throw him in that 2023 class right there. We're going to get to that 2023 class there in just a second and what exactly that all entails, and the 2024 class. But let's get to some more highlights here. Now, We're going to be moving back into the 2024 class. Arizona is looking to add a point guard in the 2024 class. Heck, they might be looking to add 2 point guards. You already got Kylan Boswell coming in 2023. We know all about that. But who could they also be looking at? And let's look at one of those first players. This is going to be the first guy, and it's a short clip. It's one that I actually took, but a player that really stuck out to me as being next level, and he checked off a lot of boxes. Again, it's a short clip. I apologize for it. But here's Zoom Diallo right here. Mike Luke camera work right there. He is 6'1", incredibly well put together. Looks like he's probably about $175, something like that. It's hard to tell because he had sleeves on, but he said that Arizona has been recruiting him, and there's every reason to understand why Arizona is recruiting him, because first and foremost, he's a no-brainer type prospect. 24/7's Travis Branham put out there that he might be the best point guard in the country. I don't know about that. I haven't seen it, but I can tell you this. Going against a Harvard Westlake team that had a Duke commit, that also had Master P's son, who is one of the best players in the entire class in there. By the way, he's going to be an absolute monster at Houston. Zoom Diallo every bit held his own. He got into the lane. He was every bit as athletic as those other players, and he was also incredibly strong. With him, he's an incredibly humble guy. And again, we're going to keep going back to the continuity factor right here. But he was asked, and I believe it was by the great Bruce Pascoe, what are your goals this coming year? And he says, my goal is to get a college scholarship so that my parents don't have to pay for college. He's a well-rounded guy. I don't think he necessarily understands just how good he is, but he's going to get to that point at some point. So we'll definitely keep a close eye on him. Arizona coaching staff obviously loves him. There's no inside information there. You can just tell by who they prioritize. If Tommy Lloyd and Jack Murphy are front and center at a game, that's probably a kid that they're going to have a little bit of interest in right there. All right. Now, the next kid is another 2024 kid named Dedan Thomas. Now, that name might be a little familiar to all you basketball people out there, mainly because his father was a longtime point guard at UNLV in the early to mid-'90s. Came in under Jerry Tarkanian, and according to Dedan Thomas Jr., he had committed to Arizona. I don't remember that, but that's still a pretty cool story either way. So let's get to his highlight, though. But first, one thing that doesn't need any highlights is the DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. Put in $5, you get $150 or $100 in free plays, but you got to bet on these Stanley Cup finals right here. And I like the Avalanche. That's my DraftKings pick of the week right there. Take it for what it's worth. But 21 and up, Arizona only. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. They'll get you taken care of. But again, basketball's over, but that doesn't mean that you can't transition your betting priorities into hockey, into baseball. There's all kinds of stuff. And by the way, you know that football is going to be here right around the corner. So again, check out the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Code word PHNX. They got all the best deals from futures to props to lines, everything you want. They got it. Code word PHNX again. Okay, now let's get to the other point guard here. Here is Dedan Thomas. And as you can tell, he's a different type of player than Zoom Diallo is. He's not the physically imposing player that a guy like Diallo is, but he can get his guys the ball in a very specific spot. You can tell he's shifty with the ball. You look at this right here. He's a lefty. He can pull up. He can make the easy shot. He can also get in the lane and make the difficult shot as well. He's a guy, a top 50 type player. It'll be interesting to see how he develops. He's not nearly as big as Zoom, so you got to keep that in mind. But he's also probably shiftier with the ball. He can pull up. He can step back. And when you're a lefty, it always is a little bit of an advantage, I think, because how many times do you really see a lefty, especially a perimeter player, get their shot blocked? It doesn't generally happen like that. So Thomas and Diallo, big priorities in the 2024-2023 and in the 2024 classes. Now, let's move backwards then a little bit. And tomorrow we'll get into some of the other players, some of the lesser known players, but still obviously very important. 2023. You've got a recruiting class right now where you've got Kylan Boswell running the point. Probably going to be a McDonald's All-American, and if he's not, he's going to be right there in that discussion. Then after that, you got KJ Lewis lined up Tucson kid, also an El Paso kid, top 40 recruit. I don't know that it would surprise anybody if he's going to be a McDonald's All-American as well. So how do you close out that class then? If you could close out that class by getting a Cody Williams out of Gilbert Perry, who is probably not going to be an instant impact major contributor, but immediately he's going to be able to he'll be able to help certainly in practice. By the time he's a sophomore, he's going to be a problem. Alfred, we're going to get to that in just a second. Alfred just asked how many of these guys are one and done. The next guy in 2023 is for sure a one and done. His name's Kwame Evans. Again, I can't really say. I don't have any inside information on this, but I would imagine that Kwame Evans is going to become an Arizona Wildcat. Top 5 guy out of Florida. You got to remember this, people. Arizona and Tommy Lloyd, they don't recruit players that they don't think that they're going to get or that they don't have a good chance of getting. He would be the highlight. He would be the gem of the entire 2023 class. Where all of these other guys are kind of in that top 25 range, Kwame Evans is in that top 5 range. For the longest time, everybody thought he was going to Oregon, but his recruiter left Oregon. He shows up to Eugene without a visit and leaves without a commitment and comes to Arizona. He was visiting other schools. Right now, I like where Arizona stands, right? So that would be your ideal 2023 class. Again, Kylan Boswell, KJ Lewis, Cody Williams, and Kwame Evans. You don't have your stereotypical big man per se, although Kwame Evans is certainly that at 6'9", but you've already going to have a couple of those guys on the roster. Umar Ballo is probably going to still be at Arizona the following year, along with Henry Visar. As good as Visar is, he's also a little bit more of I think he's more of a 2-year type player. And again, Lloyd's not looking to over-recruit anybody, so those are certainly names to keep an eye on. That's your 2023 class, ideally. Now, let's get to 2024. So, again, everything, and we're going to go back to the highlights again so anybody that's hopping in here late can see what we're talking about. But this is 2024. This is the top priority, Carter Bryant right here. Look at him. Again, number 4. You can just tell by the way he moves. You can tell by the way he gets up and down the court that basketball is natural to him. He's got a little bit of that Jason Tatum thing going to his game where he can get to his spot, not overly athletic, but great feel for the game and certainly a good enough athlete. And on top of that, a great kid. You watch him, you watch his interactions with his teammates, his coaches. You can tell why Arizona wanted him to be their first offer in 2024. He's big time. So 2024, you would love to get Carter Bryant. Who's the next guy then? And I think it comes down to those 2 point guards. I think if you're Lloyd and you're prioritizing Zoom Diallo or Dedan Thomas, you're probably going to be able to get one of those 2. Now, here's the question. How do you proceed, though? Do you say, we'd love to have both of you because our offense is such that a point can play on and off the ball the whole time? Or would you like to have somebody, just one of those guys? Lute back in the day used to always give the kids an ultimatum. He would say, listen, I like both of you guys. We've offered you both a scholarship. It's basically up to you. Who takes it first? And whoever takes it first gets that spot. So those are the priority guys in the 2023 and the 2024 class. So we were able to also talk with Tommy Lloyd after a little bit, and tomorrow we're going to get into some other of the players. You got a Jacob Coffey, the coaches we're looking at right there. You've got some other guys from 2025. Koa Pete didn't play, but we'll talk about him as well. But let's talk a little bit about the current roster and some of the guys that are being brought in. And again, we'll talk tomorrow kind of roster distribution, minutes, breakdowns, everything like that. But don't sleep on him, even though he's not a newcomer, Adama Ball. Tommy Lloyd made an express point to talk about Adama Ball, and first of all to say that he was very young for his grade. Some of these kids here at the Section 7 are probably older than Ball. He's 18 and a half. A lot of these kids are 19, sometimes they're 20 when they're still in high school. Ball and Lloyd made reference to that he was going to take some time to be able to get Ball into a into the college structure. He said he was going to keep the training wheels on him. He said he might have even kept the training wheels on him a little too long. And then by the end of the season, he was going to start playing him. And you could tell that decision definitely bore some fruit right there, because Adam Ball can play. Don't forget about him. I almost count him as a newcomer, and as the newcomers we're going to talk about here. And here's the other guys, too, that Lloyd broke down. Talked about Courtney Ramey. A lot of questions about Ramey coming in. Texas combo guard. And I asked him, I said, what kind of defender is Arizona getting here? And he says, I think we're getting a guy that likes to play defense, that has a dogged desire to play defense. And you can tell by his time at Texas that he was that guy. Now, I think the next question is, how does he fit in offensively? And Lloyd also talked about that. Lloyd said, I like what he can do offensively. He's kind of a 1.5. He can play a little bit of point, can play a little bit of the 2, and he fits in perfectly next to a Kerr Kriisa, who isn't the greatest defender in the world. And so Courtney Ramey can take a little bit of that off. But here's also how you know that Ramey's going to be playing a lot of minutes. When asked about Ramey's role, Lloyd said, I'm invested in making him good. We need him to be good this year for us to be able to reach our potential, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Anytime a coach says it's on me or we're invested in making him good, they know that player can be good. It's just on the coaches to be able to find out his role, and that's where Tommy Lloyd also excels. He's not a square peg, round hole type coach. He's very flexible. He's fluid. He's a lot like Lute Olson used to be back in the day. So Courtney Ramey, I would expect good defense, and I expect a guy that's going to play 25, 28 minutes a game right there, something like that. All right, Cedric Henderson Jr. Talked a little bit about him on record, talked a little bit about off, but we'll obviously talk about what we talked about on record. He can play. Don't let the Campbell thing fool you for a second. He is – again, I'm going to bring it up to you again. You watch those highlights against Duke and earlier in the year. You can just get him off YouTube. He looked every bit the part of a player that belonged out there. 6'6", 210, can defend. Nobody can really replace Dalen Terry as far as a facilitator, but the one thing that Henderson brings is he brings a little bit of that maturity. He also brings a little bit of that dynamic ability with the ball to be able to make that secondary pass. He's never going to be a 1.5, but he can initiate a little bit from the wing. And again, we're going back to that continuity word right there. Tommy Lloyd talked about just what a dynamic kid he is. Just talking to him, he's charismatic. You could tell he wants to be here. It's only going to be a 1-year stop. So again, continuity. Cedric Henderson, probably going to be an 18 to 20 minute per game guy. Who knows? Maybe more if he fits in. But he and Pell will certainly be manning that small forward position right there. You can just tell sometimes when a coach is happy, when a coach is excited about somebody, and that's definitely the way that it was with Cedric Henderson. All right, now, 2 more guys, obviously. Henry Visar. Henry can play, and I'm not breaking any news to you, and Lloyd talked about how he's a very skilled individual. He's fluid. He can expand his range out a little bit. He's a guy that they were obviously interested in for a long time. And there's a reason that NBA scouts have him on their radar. Now, again, he's got to get stronger. The adapting to the American life is always something that takes a little bit of time for all of these players, mainly because sometimes there's a language barrier. They haven't been over to the university system. But is there a better coach then to be able to help you apply all of that than Tommy Lloyd? I don't think so. He's the guy that's over there all the time. He knows these players. He knows the transition period. So, again, Henry Visar obviously gets full kudos from Tommy Lloyd. All right, now, last player, Philip Buchanan. So, at 6'8", he can handle the ball. He can shoot. There's always been some questions about the level of competition that he was at. Fair enough. I get it. But Lloyd, and he says this, and you got to believe him at this point. He says, I know good players when I see him. I've been scouting the international game. I know what they look like. And he's saying that about Philly B, as we'll call him. Again, the competition's not great, but you can watch some of his clips. Any 6'8" guy that's bringing the ball up the court, getting in the lane, hitting you with a step back jumper or hitting you with a reverse spin step back, that's a guy that's pretty well schooled. He's also 6'8", so another thing that he's got going for him, he's not a little dude by any means. Who knows how he's going to be able to really contribute this year, but he's certainly going to be able to contribute. So again, those are the priorities that have come out of this. We're going to talk tomorrow now about some of the other players and some of the more roster movements that kind of picked up on some maturation on the court from an Umar Ballo, maybe how Dylan Anderson has looked. Dylan Anderson, obviously the freshman that's on campus. We got a ton to get to this entire week, more highlights, more watching Tommy Lloyd, obviously. But before we sign off again, DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. All right. Now, you might be bored. I'm not a big hockey guy, but it doesn't matter because if you bet on hockey, all of a sudden you become a hockey fan because you're invested in it, just like anything else. So you put in $5 on the DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. You get $100 in free plays. It doesn't even matter who wins. Again, my pick is I like the Avalanche. I saw that 7-0 victory, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say they are going to win this series. So, again, 21 and up, Arizona only. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. They'll get you all taken care of. There's all kinds of stuff to still bet on. You got baseball, you got hockey, so don't despair. Just stay on the DraftKings Sportsbook app and for all the best stuff. Plus, it'll keep you in a betting mood with football and basketball coming up right around the corner. All right, I want to thank everybody that contributed here. Alfred, as always, you're the man. Scott, everybody here that hopped in here. We'll have this up here on the podcast here shortly. Tomorrow, we're going to talk a lot more about other players, roster movement, roster development, and we'll probably have some clips from Tommy Lloyd as well. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.